It's romantic adventure, actually.
Right.
That's not the only definition of God in the Old Testament, by the way. There's something deeper than that it refers to. So those are the options. Now, you said, don't the achievers, who are stacking up numbers, it's like they found a way forward to attain status, but they've fixated on an element that shouldn't be fundamental. They're not trying to store up the treasure in heaven. They're trying to store up the treasure on earth, and that's better than not doing it. See, this is another thing we need to understand, because I've spent a lot of time, for example, trying to figure out why people are attracted to Andrew Tate. And I know why they're attracted to Andrew Tate. They'd rather be Andrew Tate than an incel. And they're right? It's best to give the devil his due. Like if you had to choose between being kind of flabby and unhealthy and resentful and in your basement looking at pornography, hating women because all of them reject you all the time and you deserve it, and you're ineffectual and the future looks pretty damn gloomy, and then you see Andrew Tate, who's tough and hyper masculine in an almost manner that's almost a parody, and wealthy and famous, and apparently has women at his disposal, with a fair bit of stress on the idea of disposal. You'd think, well, I'd much rather be him than me. That's the incorporation of the shadow from the Jungian perspective. It's like,
yeah,
it's right.
And you think about the number of men that are incels. The thing about men also, if they get rejected a lot, they associate women with pain.
Yeah.
And then they get angry at those women because those women cause them pain. Like, it's just very simple equation.
Of course.
And that's how you get a man hater. Or, excuse me, that's how you get a woman hater.
Oh,
and the same could be said for, that's how you get a man hater, right? You associate men with rejection and cruelty.
Yeah.
And they're all that way.
Young men in particular are more likely to be rejected. Young women may have difficulty finding the ideal man, but they don't face the same degree of universal rejection. So it's hard on young men.
Well, they're not the pursuers, right, as much. The young women aren't.
Right. Well, and women are the gatekeepers, fundamentally, of sex. Sure. So that's their essential power. That's also the power of chastity.
And that's the scary thing about acquiring wealth, is that wealth allows you to bypass the genetic social hierarchy.
Yeah, well, I talked to Russell Brand about this a lot. Women threw themselves at him. How'd that work out for him? Not great. It threw him into great spiritual confusion. It was empty and hollow. And that's worth knowing, you see, because you might say to the people who are interested in the shadow figures, and Tate plays that role, the master of women, let's say, why not do that? Because you need an answer to that, certainly when it's better than being lonely, isolated, bitter, and ineffectual. That's for sure.
Right.
Well, it's because you don't confuse a stepping stone with the pinnacle. That's why. There's way more beyond that. I mean, you're a tough guy. You went through your disciplinary processes on the physical side in particular, the intellectual side too, I might add. You've got what Tate has to offer, but you're what? You're respectable. Why?
Well, I have a completely different background than him, first of all. And also, my feeling in life is whenever you can, be nice. That's like a general guideline.
Do you mean nice or good?
I mean both.
Okay.
Nice as well. I get the posturing. I get how it would be attractive to young men. I get it. If I was a young man, I would certainly be drawn to him, and I was to many fighters. And I accepted a lot of personality flaws in people that I admired as fighters because they were very successful at doing this one insanely difficult thing.
Right.
And oftentimes that requires a certain amount of narcissism. It requires a certain amount of internal focus. And ironically enough, not at the championship level. Ironically enough, it gets you close, but it doesn't get you to be the king. The kings are almost
precisely
universally disciplined, focused, and generally kind. They're some of the nicest people, the best at the most difficult thing athletically to do. And the most difficult, you're conquering other
why do you think
trained
that
men.
is?
I think you have to be.
Why?
I think
Why
Miyamoto Musashi wrote about this in the Book of Five Rings. You must have balance in everything in life. If you have imbalance, you can get pretty far because you're so
specialized.
Right, you're so driven.
Yep.
But you will fall prey to the balanced man.
Yeah, well, that's exactly my point.
You will also recognize characteristics in him that you envy and that you wish you had yourself. Like if you're a narcissist and a sociopath, you know you are, and you can't really be proud of yourself. You can't. You don't have the benefit of the positive feedback that you get from true kindness to others. You don't have.
Well, you also know that your reputation is founded on sand. And one of the ways to rationalize that is, well, everyone does that.
Right.
Everyone's like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then you don't trust or like anyone.
Right. And then you're really alone.
That's for sure.
You're really alone. And then if you do achieve success, it's hollow because you realize like.
So, you just outlined there the progression that Carl Jung identified as characteristic of individuation, right? With the second thing that you said. So imagine that you start an incel. Right, you're ineffectual and you're rejected as a young man. Now there are exceptions, but let's just play that out as the unhappy majority. Okay, now you look for a shadow figure to sharpen you up, to toughen you up, and to make you strive at least along one dimension, right? And so then you do that. Well, then the next thing that happens in the Jungian stage progression is, for a man, it's integration of the anima, which is the feminine part. And it's integration, it's not replacement. It's like, oh, well, then you discover the utility of empathy and compassion and kindness and mercy and care, while still being able to deal out justice, let's say. And so then you bridge that gap, and then that integration you just said, even among fighters, that's what puts them in the highest place. Right? That's right. That's right. So, but it's hard for the people. It's hard for those who are completely disaffected and also quite angry about it. The people who are interested in the pathway that Tate offers, they're not so unhappy that he's hard on women because they're pretty mad at women. And so, if it's the bitch or me, then I'll pick me. Right. Exactly. And so, and it is very crucial to get this progression correct because monster's better than wimp. Right. But the question is, what's better than monster? And so it's very interesting that you made those comments on the fighting side because you wouldn't necessarily think that it would be true in that world as well.
Well, one of the best examples is your countryman, George St.